So this is the 2024-2025 winter weather outlook. I'm going to start again here. I'm Mac Morris. I'm a meteorologist at the National Weather Service here in Austin, San Antonio. We had a very strong El Nino that resulted in above normal rainfall and drought improvement along the I-35 corridor and points eastward. That map on the top right there shows our rainfall departure from normals earlier this year and briefly last year, between 2 and 10 inches above normal for the I-35 corridor and points eastward for last winter. However, we did have some decent rainfall in the spring and summer months as well. Temperatures were still above normal, but not significantly. We had below normal rainfall of the Edwards Plateau, Hill Country, and the Rio Grande Plains. It ended up being a very warm winter at Del Rio. It was their 5th warmest winter, 8 days with temperatures below or around freezing or below. Here's the precipitation over the last 30 days here in our area. We've actually had some decent rainfall since the middle of November. Still not enough any significant dent in our drought though, and you'll see that here as we move forward in a couple of minutes. But we've at least had some rainfall. We certainly could use it. Many of these rains have been kind of long, soaking rains, not heavy, quick runoff type of good, the kind of rain that we'd like to see that takes some time to kind of soak into the soil. Over the last 30 days, this is the percent of normal precip though. Despite the fact we've had some rain, we're still between about 25 and 50% of our normal precip for the past month. So we're still well below what we should be for the month of November heading into the month of December. The last 90 and the last 180 days of precip on the left is the last 90 days. So basically the last 3 months, it's September 1st. We're still well below normal for pretty much almost the entire area, with the exception of maybe a small sliver from Del Rio into Uvalde. Some decent rainfall in the month of September. I'll get to that here in a second. But over the last 180 days, even then counting for some of that rain that we had in the summer months in July, which was kind of unusual, we're still not even quite at our normal levels for precipitation since June 1st. So still out, particularly the I-35 corridor and points eastward. Year-to-date precipitation, not nearly as bad as it was last year at this time, but still we could certainly use some more rainfall heading into the winter months, and that outlook doesn't look particularly favorable for that, as you'll see in a few minutes. The bulk of Del Rio's rain actually fell within a 3-day time period, with 6.55 inches of rain accumulated between September 1st and 3rd. So you see that number 10.54, well, about 62% of that fell in just 3 days. So very dry in Del Rio for a good chunk of this year. Long-term precipitation deficits, I went ahead and did a map of the last 4 years since December 2020, and it's not great, obviously. Deficits between 10 and even 60 inches in some spots along the Rio Grande, even in parts of the Hill Country and Edwards Plateau. So we're still working on some long-term deficits, long-term drought, and unfortunately, as we head into this winter, despite it being a kind of a weaker La Nina, it's still not particularly favorable for rainfall as we move into the winter months. As far as the climatology goes, snowfall, not very typical around our area. As you noted in 2021, though, we had 3 major winter storms in 1 week. So sometimes we can get some snow, but it's not particularly common. About every 4 years, 1 inch of snow in San Antonio, and about 1 inch every 8 years or so in San Antonio. It's pretty rare. Austin typically sees it a little bit more often, about 40% of years see some snowfall over a 1/10 of an inch and or so, very similar to what San Antonio goes through. We see greater than 1 inch. Del Rio is even less common, only about a 20% snowfall every 5 years. There are some new winter products we have this winter. We're going to a cold weather advisory and extreme cold watch and warning. Those will be replacing particular current watches and warnings current warnings and advisories that we have. So the wind chill advisory is being replaced with the cold weather advisory. Extreme cold warning and wind chill warning are being consolidated to extreme cold warning, and the watch and wind chill watch are being consolidated to extreme cold watch. And this is already in effect. So if we were to have any of the watches, warnings, or advisories in place, this would already be put into effect. It's basically just a name change, but it's also trying to communicate the fact that dangerous cold is dangerous cold with or without wind. Cold is cold, and that's the message we want to send. So for cold weather advisory criteria, we would need an air temperature of 20 degrees or a wind chill value of 20 degrees. San Antonio points southward, north degree threshold. And then in cold warning, that would be either wind chill or air temperature, 5 degrees for the hill country, Everett's Plateau, and then 10 degrees for San Antonio points southward. As far as our winter climatology goes, winter is typically our driest season of the year, so it's not particularly unexpected that we would have drier conditions during the winter months. La Nina usually makes it even drier and warmer than normal. Weather is pretty uncommon, so is flash flooding, and the coldest temps of the year typically occur here in the next couple of weeks between the end of December through the middle of January. Now, the El Nino Southern Oscillations, that's the abbreviation for it. It is responsible for La Ninas and El Ninos. There is a forecast for La Nina to weaken by late winter and early spring. You notice on the graph here on the left, NDJ stands for November, December, January. Then you go on so on forth for February, January, February, March, February, March, April. And we go into the spring and summer months towards the right side of that graph. You notice the odds for El Nino go up a little bit, but it's more likely favoring neutral conditions after the spring, which doesn't one direction or the other for us typically. And that graph on the top right there also shows La Nina typically occurs with a 0.5 degree sea surface temperature anomaly over the equatorial Pacific. And we're right around that threshold over the next couple months, but you notice that that trend goes towards the middle of the graph, which would mean ENSO neutral conditions heading into the spring months. So El Nino typically results in wetter and cooler than normal conditions, while La Nina typically results in warmer and drier than normal conditions, since the jet stream is typically a bit further north during La Nina winters. Snowfall is typically below climatological normals during La Nina and ENSO neutral winters. However, San Antonio and Del Rio all-time seasonal and event snowfall records occurred during La Nina. And that's basically a good example of climate versus weather. You can have warmer than drier than normal conditions for most of the winter, and you can have 1 week or just a couple of days where you have some pretty wild weather. And that's what happened in 2021. And then also in 1984. As far as severe weather occurrences go, they're really low in winter, typically below climatological normals during La Nina and ENSO neutral winters, which we're going to be in. Warmer air will return before Christmas. I know it is a little bit cooler out there over the next couple of days, and then even tomorrow morning we might have a light freeze over portions of the area, but the odds lean towards warmer and wetter than normal weather December 24th through the 28th. Now, wetter than normal for this time of the year doesn't mean we're going to have a washout by any means, but we might get some rainfall either Christmas Eve and then perhaps later in the week, but Christmas Eve looks like our best chance over the next 6 to 10 days. The outlook for January just released yesterday. No surprises here. Above normal temperatures expected, likely above normal, and leaning below or slightly below normal in terms of precipitation. So a typical pattern expected in the month of January for a La Nina winter in South Central Texas. The seasonal outlook also released yesterday. That goes January, February, and March. We're getting into portions of the spring months, but I figured it was best to just send you the seasonal, give you the seasonal outlook for these next 3 months because we only have a week and a half left of December. So typically what we kind of expect with still La Nina heading into a neutral, and so likely above normal temperatures and also probably going to be below normal precipitation. Now the outlook in terms of drought, you see the graphic on the left there. We still have a good chunk of the area within moderate to severe drought, and then portions of the area that have been within extreme drought for several years now. And that has actually expanded over the last couple months since we haven't seen much rainfall since the beginning of September. The outlook does call for drought to persist or even develop in portions that don't have drought right now. Here's a look at our 14-day average stream flow. We did have some rain in the last couple of weeks. Didn't really do much to our stream flow. We're going to need significant rain to really help with that stream flow. Any areas in that maroon, orange, or even red shading are below normal stream flow. Anything in the green, things are doing just fine, or even blue shades means the stream flow is above normal. Obviously, most of our area not within that area, not within those ranges. So we still need rainfall to help out with reservoirs and lakes as well. Fire weather conditions in the near term, we're not particularly concerned. However, the next couple of months, you see January, February, and March from left to right. We're at the bottom middle portion of that graph, or of that chart. Going to be above normal fire weather conditions pretty much the next 3 months. So drier than normal conditions prevail through the winter as well. So warmer and drier than normal typically is going to lead to elevated fire weather conditions or above normal fire weather. Oh, I forgot to change the top of that one, but you know it's 2024, 2025. Heavy rain, flash flooding, river flooding, probably below normal impacts due to antecedent dryness, a drier season, and odds tilted toward below normal rainfall. In terms of fire weather, expecting that to go up over the next couple of months, trending drier and warmer than normal into the spring. And then going to be below normal potential for severe weather through January. We might see some severe weather pick up towards the late spring or late winter, early spring, but we'll have to keep an eye on that situation as we move into the next couple of months. But winter weather, expecting near to below normal potential for winter weather. There could be significant events are not out of the question, but they are quite rare. Three main takeaways here. La Nina conditions will continue to keep odds tilted toward an overall drier and warmer than normal winter. That does not mean we won't have periods of winter weather. We should still be prepared for this possibility. Based on the historical reoccurrence, it is unlikely that we see another winter storm comparable to 2021.